Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And today's video, this one might be rather difficult for me to do. Normally, you guys know I throw in humor, oftentimes a lot of trolling when I do these current events. But this one's kind of a serious topic. I'm going to see if I can pull that off throughout this video, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Because this one kind of hits close to home because it's dealing with someone who I have a lot of previous interaction with, someone who I knew and had quite a few conversations with before I was even a YouTuber, and someone who has given me credit over the years for being a master troll, and that's Alan Aragon. And yes, in his own words, he has referred to me as a master troll. Those are his exact words, even before I was a YouTuber. So, again, that should tell you guys something. Anyone who takes some things I say too seriously, I have a long history of being an internet troll. But without further ado, let me go ahead and put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Needless to say, I'm very disappointed in Alan. I think that needs to be said. I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in him personally. And it's not because if this was anything trolling or anything, because it's one thing to have some fun and some jokes on the internet. But this is someone who professionally I respect. Professionally I respect. Someone whose work I think is very important. I think it's essential, and I think anything that damages his reputation is bad for this industry. And I have to balance that with him doing something that that is a personal flaw, not even at this point has become a professional flaw. That is really unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Now, some people might even said unforgivable, but that's not for us to decide. That's for people who he's wronged to decide if they want to forgive him or not. That's not our call to make. But what more or less has happened, Alan. And again, a lot of people brought this to me, but I'm on his social media. We're Facebook friends on my private Facebook. He kind of admitted on social media, either yesterday or the day before, that he apologized for his alcoholism, that he apologized to his family, people he may have harmed, and said that he's going to get into treatment and he's going to take basically like I guess a gender sensitivity training or something. I don't get it, all that nonsense. I think that part of that, I think that stuff is bullshit. I don't care about sensitivity training. If you take sensitivity training, you're probably a pussy unless you're forced to do so. But that being said, what happened later then came out, he issued another apology, and one of the individuals involved, as far as I know, the primary individual here, there's stories that there's possibly others. I haven't seen all of that. What I know is this woman came forward right there on his social media. It's public. I'm not going to discuss her name. You guys can go see it for yourselves. She told the story of what happened. And the short of it, at an event, at a major event, at a conference, and yes, he got in trouble for this apparently at the conference, while everyone was drinking and everything else, a woman who's married, and I guess she's somewhat of his peers. She's in the industry. I've actually hadn't heard of her before, but he's not denying these allegations. He has allowed them to stay on his wall, so I think that's fair to say that that's him saying, look, yeah, more or less what happened. So there's a difference, is that people can say, well, there's two sides. Well, he's not disputed what she said, and he's chosen to leave it on his social media. So therefore, it's reasonable to conclude that he's not contesting what she's saying. In fact, I think he's almost claiming he doesn't remember all of it due to being intoxicated. But he more or less sexually harassed her. Now, some people are calling it sexual assault. I disagree with that. And people can say, well, how would you? Well, guys, I have been a survivor of childhood sexual assault. I have a pretty good idea of what sexual assault is. I wouldn't call it sexual assault, but I would describe it as harassment, possibly borderline criminal in nature. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. I guess it's going to depend on the laws where they're at. But highly inappropriate. And I'm going to say just flat out wrong. I don't condone his behavior here. And this is not me white knighting, as a lot of you guys are going to put it. All these incels and guys who can't get laid always scream about white knights. This isn't even white knighting, guys. This is just about men behaving with some basic decency. And you guys can talk all you want about all these girls are sluts and whatever. This is a woman who's a newlywed. She's been married this year and is married and is a professional going to a conference related to her profession. And the way it seems to be interpreted is that he was being touchy-feely with a lot of girls and maybe mistook her for a groupie. And he got really touchy-feely with her, grabbed her, pulled her in, and whispered sexual things into her ear, apparently, as she pushed him away and told him no, that basically, I'm not one of your groupies. I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in you sexually. I'm married. And actually, he's married. And that he let it go for about 30 seconds and then grabbed her and was groping her and then was restraining her, and she couldn't push him away. She tried to physically push him away while they were sitting there, I guess, at a booth or whatever, while people had been drinking and stuff. And he basically pulled her in, wouldn't let her go, and she tried to forcefully pull him away, and he continued to whisper sexual things in her ear of what he wanted to do with her after she had already told him, no, I'm married, I'm not one of your groupies. And this lasted for a little while, and then finally other people went and reported it. That's the long and short of it. So I've seen a lot of other people speak out about it. Other people I know of online, like Russell Taylor, who you guys know I'm friends with. He's a coach. Greg Knuckles commented on it, and I think Greg pretty well summed it up. That, you know, if we as an industry, and I mean not we, because I'm not they're part of the industry, I'm YouTube. But if we're going to tolerate this sort of behavior from men in our community, then that's a problem. And I think that's the point here, is that this can't be tolerated. And that's why I'm so disappointed, because this is the sort of stuff I've talked to guys in the past about, being gentlemen, the way that we treat women. Because I'm not one of these lefty, whatever guys who claim to be feminist types, I've conservative values as far as this stuff goes. I do believe that women are ladies and men are gentlemen, and that we need to behave in such a manner, right? Unless we're going to be degenerate as a society, we have an obligation to be that way. And that means that particularly when you have a woman who is clearly, in this case, not asking for it. I mean, let's be realistic here. When a woman tells you, no, I'm married, and isn't being flirty with you, and you continually grope her and pull her towards you, and she tries to push you away and says no in a public setting, who's never made any flirtations or sexual advances at you, I mean, what more can you say? The level of inappropriateness there is very high. And therein lies the problem, is that, you know, Alan's a married guy. She was married and telling him no. And all right, let's look at that even from more conservative values. This isn't even a single chick who's running around flirting with the guy. This is a happily married woman who's telling him no. I mean, again, I think any reasonable person at this point, any guy out there, no matter what your views are on women or anything else, I'll tell you guys right there, okay, the guys who maybe have a different view of women, that's another man's wife, who in a professional setting related to her profession in the nutrition world is telling him no when they're at a professional conference, right? This is another dude's wife. This is serious shit. And, you know, he's blaming his addiction. He's blaming his alcoholism. And some people are saying, well, that's not an excuse. Well, I don't think anyone is going to say that's an excuse. Is it a possible reason? There's a difference between a reason and an excuse. A reason is, you know, I happen to have an addiction problem and I can't behave myself when I'm under the influence of this substance. That doesn't excuse it, but it certainly gives a reason, right? I mean, for example, where I live, Texas, there are different rules for intoxication. You don't get off from a crime if you commit it because you're intoxicated, but it can mitigate it because it can remove motive, meaning it wasn't necessarily malicious in nature, is that you didn't have the proper inhibitions or reaction times driving your vehicle or whatever when you were intoxicated. The intoxication was a factor. Now, you still get a criminal offense. Like, let's say you kill someone while driving drunk. here in Texas. You're not going to be charged with first-degree murder because you intended to kill that person and planned it out, right? But you're going to, intoxication manslaughter is its own charge. It's its own charge, and it's still a felony. In other words, you're still probably going to get prison time for it. You're probably going to have a felony permanently on your record. You're probably going to lose your right to vote. You're going to lose your right to own guns, right? That's what's going to happen. Like, you don't get off scot-free just because it was intoxication. But it is understood that there's a difference between us doing really stupid stuff that ends up being criminal or negative in nature when we're under the influence of a substance versus doing it under our normal conscious control. There is a difference. And so here's what I want to say. I'm not justifying it. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it's right, because it wasn't. But I personally have a lot of experience around this. I have alcoholics as close family members. I have been married to an alcoholic. I know a lot of people who've struggled with addiction in my life, and I personally have had to suffer as a result of other people's addictions at points in my life. I mean, I've been on the receiving end of the negatives of addiction. I understand how bad it is, and I understand what it does to people. And I guess what I would say with that is that, there's a lot of geniuses who have addiction problems. That's been a historic problem. Very intelligent people actually it's very common for them to struggle with addictions. I mean, even within this industry, I mean, a perfect example, Lyle McDonald. And Lyle McDonald has admitted, other people admitted, he's got some addiction problems. And it does make him behave in a certain way. Guy is still extremely intelligent, but he's got addiction problems. I mean, he's actually a close personal friend with Alan. Then, of course, you got guys like Jerry Ward on the other extreme who are really stupid, who have addiction problems too. So, I mean, it's not to say that everyone with an addiction problem, even within this industry, is intelligent, because there are clearly some really stupid people like Jerry who have addiction issues. But the point is, it's really common. And I guess what I would say here, I guess my advice to Alan is someone who is a supporter of his work, has supported his work, has had conversations with him. I'm disappointed, bro. I'm really disappointed in you. I really hope that you really do plan on doing something about this, and maybe this was the wake-up call you needed. But what I would also say is that you've got a degree of responsibility here, because I'm going to take the perspective that the alcohol really is the issue, that maybe this isn't really truly who he is, that this is how he behaves when he drinks. Well, here's the thing, Alan. The reason I'm going to say, yeah, you bear responsibility here, if you know that you've been developing a drinking problem, you know that you have inhibition problems when you drink, it's up to you as an individual and for you as a professional in a professional environment to get that shit under control before it gets to this point. And that's what I would have to say about that. As far as that being a cop-out, it's not a cop-out. It's a reason. But you let it get to this point, brother. You let it get to this point. You let the alcoholism affect you to this degree to where it hurt you professionally. Because this is going to hurt him professionally. And that's what sucks about it. And there's just no way around it. Alan has an enormous female audience. He actually has a really strong female base. And maybe that's why some of this happens. He probably does have some groupies. He's going to lose a lot of those female followers. And it's just bad for the industry, because Alan has fantastic research, fantastic work that he puts out, and this personal problem of his has now become professional. And I can quite frankly see that he's going to lose a lot of people who are women who follow him. He's going to lose them. He's going to lose a lot of his outreach as a result of this. And what I'm going to say to Alan is, as far as that apology goes, a lot of people felt your apology was really weak. And here's how I would say with all of that. People will say, well, it's unforgivable, or that was a weak apology. I would say that's not for us to decide. That's for the people he apologized to decide for themselves. It's their prerogative. If this woman chooses to accept his apology, that's her business, right? That's her business. She can decide for herself if she wants to accept his apology. If she chooses to take it as sincere and accept it, that's her right. And if she chooses to say, no, Alan, you can go F yourself, you piece of shit. And if she chooses to take that perspective, that's also her right to take that perspective. See, guys, that's how apologies work. Whether you give a good apology or not, or how sincere it appears to be to anyone else, what really matters in an apology is, does the people you're apologizing to accept it? That's what matters, and so that's her prerogative, and that's up to her to decide. And I would say that she's within her right to decide what apology she wants to accept or not. And the companies involved, because again, there were companies involved with this, it's up to those companies to decide if they want to forgive him for that and what their professional dealings are going to be with him from henceforth. But what I would say to Alan is, yeah, you need to get help for this issue. You absolutely need to get help with this issue. You need to get yourself straightened out. If this is, because this is career ending. This is, Alan, this is damaging to the industry. Do you understand? Do you really understand that people like you, who are prominent voices, who say things that people need to hear, who do stand up to a lot of the bullshit in the nutrition world, you can't afford to tarnish your own reputation in this way. This industry can't afford for you to do this. You're not just hurting yourself, because you are. You're not just hurting the people that you've upset directly. You're actually hurting the state of nutrition and the online fitness community by allowing this to happen to you. And I don't want to sound non-hypocritical here, because, hey, I'll be honest, guys, I've done stuff publicly that in certain ways hurt my own reputation. And a lot of the good information, that's what upsets some people. It's like, wow, you put all this valuable information, but you've trolled too hard, you've done certain things that's hurt your reputation, and that hurts the message that you put out, which really sucks, bro. And you know what? That's a fair criticism of me. So I don't want people to stand here and think that I'm preaching to Alan saying, well, just you. Well, you know, I have cases of this myself. Not his situation, but cases where I've allowed my own reputation to be damaged to the point with my own antics, to where at times the message that I put out itself, which people do need to hear, can get lost in the translation. And Alan has pretty much done this himself with this situation. And I'm going to be honest with him, Alan, if you don't get your alcoholism under control and you ever let another situation like this happen, your reputation is done. Professionally, you're done. Get your shit together. I mean, I'm still a supporter of Alan's work. Like I said, I'm very personally disappointed in him. And I think no matter what he does with this at this point, this is going to hurt him in his outreach, and it's going to hurt him professionally for a long time, maybe even forever. And what I would say again is that unless he gets himself under control and really and truly shows signs that he is working on fixing this, understands that he's going to be held accountable for this. If he's even seen drinking alcohol at an event again, it could further destroy his reputation. And if he gets so drunk that he pulls another stunt like this and another one gets publicized after he's apologized and said he's going to get treatment for all of this, he's possibly done professionally. That could be the end of Alan's basically career. That's career-ending stuff. So, brother, you need to get your shit together. And there's a lot of us who support you who are very disappointed. And yeah, your behavior is unacceptable. I mean, drinking or not, alcohol or not, it's unacceptable, man. And what you need to remember, bro, we live in America. And you're dealing with a community of lifters and a community of gun owners and everything else. You probably need to not be hitting on other dudes' girls, particularly their wives. You know damn well that ends badly. That could end real badly. That could end real badly. You know people get beat, stabbed, shot all the time for that crap. All the time. And people don't care if you were drinking or not sometimes. You grope the wrong dude's girl when you're drunk. The least of your concerns in some cases might be her getting upset or pressing charges or talking bad about you. You get a dude after you who really wants to do some damage. You got to watch that shit. Damn, bro. Alright, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.